So today it's all things Batman. We're going to be battling two movies that are considered to be the best Batman movies. We have on this side Batman the Dark Knight, and on this side Batman the Mask of Phantasm. Now those two movies are almost actually a decade apart. One is from 2008, the other one is from 1993. One is animated, one is live action, and one did not do well in the theaters but did well on TV. One is considered to be one of the best cinematic experiences when it comes to superhero movies, and both of them are pivotal. One proved that animation is not about kids. You can make grown-up content using animation. The other one proved that you can actually make a good comic book movie and make it cinematic and make it not all play, all comic books, or everything pop. You can actually make a serious theater cinematic experience. Now, here's the thing. We're going to look at both movies. We're going to look at a few factors about the film, what makes some things better, what makes some things worse, and for each we're going to give it 5 points. So everything is out of 5, and then at the end of it all we're going to give a total, and then we're going to decide which is the best Batman movies, because this, apart from Tim Burton's first Batman movie, these are considered to be up there. Now before we continue, let me make something clear. These are the best Batman movies. I'm not trying to say that but this is Batman top tier content. So whichever wins and whichever loses, they're still top tier Batman content. So let's begin. We're going to begin with the obvious, and I want to get this out of the way because it's what everyone talks about. The villains. Heath Ledger, fantastic performance. He was able to give us something that felt so real that it made me feel uncomfortable, because he felt like something that can exist in the real world. He felt like a villain that can actually exist. Everything about him felt real, but yet so unpredictable and menacing, and that actually works. Apart from Heath Ledger, now that's out of the way because that's what everybody recognizes. Actually, The Dark Knight is a Joker movie featuring Batman. I think, according to me, it was more of a Joker movie. Batman and everyone else just happens to be there, and that's what many of us truly remember it for, the Joker. Now, apart from the Joker, we also have the gangsters. We also have Harvey Dent, Two-Face, who I thought was underused, but then apart from that, his twist, the little time that we have with him, with the Two-Face look, and his sudden, when he goes extreme, when he's radicalized by the Joker, I loved that. I loved the way he suddenly turns and embraces his true nature. I also love the gangsters. The gangsters feel real. It feels like the mob was depicted in real time. That's for The Dark Knight. Everything felt real time. Everything felt grounded. Everything felt real. The gangsters felt like gangsters that you meet on the streets. They felt real. Now, when you look at the villains in Batman the Mask of Phantasm, I think, Andrea is, I don't want to spoil it for you, the Mask of Phantasm, the bad guy is threatening. The first time I saw this movie, I was actually terrified by the characters because I saw it when I was very young. I was terrified by the presence, how he walked in, how he introduced himself. If you see the first image, if I show you this image, you'll remember what he said. It's such an effective character, and I think the best, the way they usually say, if you want to make a good villain, make a reflection of the hero. This villain, unlike the Joker, is more of a Batman, but decides, I'm not going to do good, I'm not going to be a bad guy, I'm not going to be a good guy. I'm just going for revenge. I don't care about everything else. I'm like Batman, but now my objective is not doing good. My objective is getting my revenge. So I like that about that character. The character is very complex. There are details for the few of you who've never seen this, and I think we've all seen it. So spoiler alert. So Andrea is a there's authenticity in what she's doing. There's a sense of understanding. Everything, it doesn't feel like everything just popped up from nowhere. We get a good backstory. The gangsters, the only problem with this film in terms of villains, the gangsters didn't feel like they were like real-time gangsters. They felt comic bookish, they felt unreal, they felt fictional. They just felt, they didn't feel like real gangsters. Yes, they were grounded, but they were over the top. That's the word, they were over the top, and I couldn't connect with the gangsters. Now, as for the Joker, this again was Mark Hamill was fantastic in this. Actually, let me put it this way. When you talk of the Joker laugh, I remember Mark Hamill. I don't remember Heath Ledger. I remember Mark Hamill. Now, the perfect Joker, according to me, is Heath Ledger, the performance of Heath Ledger, but you give him the Mark Hamill laugh. If you combine those two, you get the perfect Joker. That's according to me. So, in the category of villains, the Dark Knight wins, and you give it a 5. That's a 5 over 5 because it was just grounded. All the bad guys in the film felt real, felt authentic, and as for Batman Mask of Phantasm, we give them a 4. Why? Because the Phantasm felt threatening, but again, it was more of get the hero, then flip the hero around. So it's more, if you take the Phantasm and give him a Batman cowl, it's just Batman, but instead of saving people, the bad guy goes for revenge. The Joker comes in, and the Joker has one of the best final scene, and I enjoyed that, but it wasn't enough. You cannot compare to Heath Ledger's performance. So that's 5 for Dark Knight, 4 for Batman Mask of Phantasm. The next one is the theme song, the score, the sound. This one I'm going to make it very short. I love a certain scene in The Dark Knight, the chasing, the car chasing. After Harvey Dent says it's Batman, and then the Joker and have to get him, and then he has to, with the truck flip. The events before that, when there's no truck, and it's just cars and explosions, and it's just sound effects, that was perfect. Now, when you come to the score and the theme, one of the biggest problems with Hans Zimmer's scores, for me, it's like they sound all like Hans Zimmer's score, and the problem I had with Dark Knight is that it feels like a Hans Zimmer score. So the first thing that you recognize is Hans Zimmer, not Batman. When you look at Batman Mask of Phantasm, if I were to show you this picture, you can actually hear the picture, because the score is so iconic, it's so grand, it's so epic. When it begins, when Gotham is introduced, you actually feel it. You can actually feel the power of it. It introduces Batman as this over the top, dynamic, badass character. You feel, but the score totally elevates a scene. Let me give you an example. Alfred gives Batman his mask for the first time. Batman puts it on and turns around to look at Alfred. Alfred responds. Now, if you were to remove the score from that, the soundtrack, the theme from that, you don't have such an effect. But when he puts it on and the theme is played, oh, you go like, okay, yeah, that is badass. It elevates that scene. So for this, I'm going to give The Dark Knight. Actually, before I even give it a score, let me put it this way. If I were to show you an image from this image, can you actually hear this image? If I was to show you this image, can you hear it? And if I was to show you this image, and you've seen all these 3 movies, can you hear that image? If you can hear that image, then you'll understand why I'm giving The Dark Knight a 3.5 in terms of the theme, and I'm giving Batman Mask of Phantasm a 4.5. Because that theme for Batman Mask of Phantasm, for me, it's perfect. It feels like something that was created in Asgard. You know, it's a choir. It feels just epic and grand. And the Dark Knight theme feels progressive, feels like we are moving. It feels like a sound, a theme that is used to drive a certain energy. While the Dark Knight, while the Batman Mask of Phantasm is used to make everything just feel grand and big and epic. So it's Dark Knight 3.5, Batman Mask of Phantasm 4.5. So the other one is cinematic experience. Oh, it's Gotham. Before we get to cinematic experience, let's talk about Gotham. Gotham as a character, Gotham as the premise. So for this one, this one is tricky because the Dark Knight gave us a Gotham that is close to something that we can recognize. It feels grounded, it feels real, it feels like something that we've seen before. It feels like something that we've explored. Now, the Dark Knight, the Mask of Phantasm, they had creative liberty. It doesn't feel like anything we've seen. It feels like something from the 30s, yet it feels like a prediction of what the future would look like. It feels like a world of the future. If you watch the film, I think you understand. So the two worlds are totally different. The approaches are totally different. But in terms of the characters and the mob and just how the people and the attitude of Batman towards, for the Batman Mask of Phantasm, Bruce Wayne or Batman is focused on the villains, the bad guys, and solving a crime. While for Dark Knight, the focus is more on the city, saving the people. The city is it's an important part of the story. It's entwined into everything. Even the ending is about the people. It's not about Batman versus Joker. There is that, yes, but it's about the people. So I think the world of Dark Knight is the Gotham of Dark Knight is more believable. It's far more understandable and comprehensive than the world of Mask of Phantasm, because Mask of Phantasm, despite the fact that it's animated, it's supposed to be fictional, it just doesn't connect. Again, I feel like Mask of Phantasm is a world of the good guy and the bad guys. We don't get to see the other people. We don't get to see what the city is like. You don't get to experience. The Dark Knight, from the word go, from the opening, you just get to experience the city. We see Gotham during the day. That is what makes. That's why I'm giving the Dark Knight a 4. And also, I can't. The Mask of Phantasm. The thing I liked about it is that they took creative liberty. I like the fact that it was creative enough to do their own thing, to explore a different look. The skyscrapers. I like the fact that I loved the world of the future theme. I loved just how gritty it feels in the future and how clean it feels in the past. There's just an interesting take on the world, and yeah, it's a draw. So they both have 4. Let's just give them 4 because they're all epic. So Dark Knight gets a 4, Mask of Phantasm gets a 4. Now the cinematic experience, hands down, Christopher Nolan outdid himself. I think for me that was a much better cinematic experience. Mask of Phantasm is a good streaming experience. Watching it at home is perfect, but watching it in the cinema, I don't know. For an animated film, I don't know. And the fact that Dark Knight was shot in IMAX format, it just elevates the experience. The fight scenes feel better. The chasing with the truck just feels bigger. Everything just feels grander. Now, the Mask of Phantasm was shot well. It has some epic scenes, but it just doesn't beat that cinematic experience. And plus, no offense, Mask of Phantasm was directed by Bruce Timm and Eric Radomski. Christopher Nolan is a better director. I'm not saying that he understands how to make a film, a movie. So the experience is more cinematic rather than just entertainment. So for cinematic, I give Dark Knight a 4. I give BMP, Mask of Phantasm, a 3.5. I'm just saying, there are some scenes from the Mask of Phantasm that are good, but it lacked that, epic, and there are reasons for it. You can actually go online and read about it. The Mask of Phantasm was supposed to go directly to on video, but the studio decided, you know what, we want to make this for cinema. So they were given a little time to actually develop it and transform it from TV to widescreen. So I think that's why. I think that affected the quality of the cinematic experience. The other one is translation. My other point is translation. So the previous one, in terms of cinema, we have Dark Knight 4, Mask of Phantasm 3.5. Now translation. These are comic book movies. So which one translated from comic book to film well? I give that to Mask of Phantasm. Why? Because that feels like an authentic comic book. It feels like a comic book emotion. Everything about it, from the design, from the architecture, from the characters, I know it's animated, I get the point that it's animated, but the creative liberty that they took with it makes it more of an authentic comic book adaptation than the Dark Knight. The Dark Knight was obviously an action thriller that just happened to be a superhero movie. That's a thriller, it just happens to be a superhero movie. That's why Christopher Nolan talks about grounding everything and the movie feeling more like Heat. It feels realistic, it's grounded, it just happens to be a Batman story. You understand? So for this, for translation, I give it, it's a bit obvious. I give it to Batman Mask of Phantasm, I give them a 4. For Dark Knight, I give it a 3. Because if you were to remove Batman, it would still make sense as a film. It wouldn't be all that Batman is. So it's not quite authentic, an authentic Batman movie. So it gets a 3. And now, Alfred. For me, Michael Caine was perfect. He didn't feel pretentious. He didn't feel. The look was different. He's more confident. He's more intertwined into Batman's life. They interact like the real people who know each other. From the Mask of Phantasm, Alfred feels like the typical Alfred, pretentious. He's there to mock Batman. He's there to make fun of him in a playful way. They're there to exchange banter. But outside that, we don't get a lot of real interaction with both of them. And the wisdom that comes out of Michael Caine is mwah. Of course, and the way Michael Caine speaks, his accent, there's something about Michael Caine and the way he expresses himself. It's fantastic. So, in this case, Dark Knight gets a 4. Mask of Phantasm gets a 3. The other one is Bruce Wayne, not Batman, the Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne, in terms of the Mask of Phantasm, was much more vulnerable. I think we see him smile, we see him have interactions that we don't normally see him have in all these movies. Even in the Dark Knight, yes, we have a love interest Rachel in Dark Knight, and we see that emotional connection, but we don't get a lot from Christian Bale. We don't get a lot of expressions. We don't get a lot of reaction. Batman in Dark Knight is always stoic. We don't get a lot of a free-flowing, vulnerable character. In Batman Mask of Phantasm, I think you remember the same way to see him. We actually see him break down, and we see him afraid, and we see him uncomfortable, and we see him heartbroken. We see him sad, we see him happy, we see him smile a lot. We see a real person. We see Bruce Wayne. In Dark Knight, we only see, if you watch that movie very well and look at Christian Bale, there's very little expressions. And after he loses Rachel, you just get a stoic him sitting down, thinking, or standing with the whatever and looking at the coin, and he just the head leaning down. I think it's cinematic, yes, but you don't really connect to Bruce Wayne as a character. And okay, the only problem I had with that is that, and I've mentioned it, Christian Bale was stoic. There was a lot of stoics. He was so stoic in the film that you could have every single small reaction that you get from him, you go like, wow, that's an expression. But if you watch Batman Mask of Phantasm, there are a lot of scenes where Batman is smiling. You can actually see him happy, you can see him smile, and when he's terrified, he's terrified. I think one reason is because it's animation. Everything has to be so expression. You have to express everything. But when you think about it, there's a very fine line of distinction between Bruce Wayne and Batman when you watch Mask of Phantasm. You can actually tell that this is Bruce Wayne because of how he behaves, and you can actually tell when he puts on that mask, then he's a totally different person. When it comes to Dark Knight, for me they looked like the same. They felt like they were the same person, because Bruce Wayne was so stoic in Dark Knight. I was like, oh, I can't connect. So with that, I give Mask of Phantasm, I give it 4.5, and Dark Knight, I give it a 4. Now you can see they're very close, because again, it's not that Bruce Wayne was bad, it's just that I needed to see more expressive Christian Bale, and you didn't get to see a lot of that. The other one is the action. Now, I talked about the chasing, but here's where I had the problem with Christopher Nolan's take on the Batman character and the Joker character. This movie should have ended at the point whereby, after the explosion, Harvey Dent's face is burned, Batman has lost Rachel, the Joker is roaming around free like a madman. That movie should have ended there. That could have been the perfect ending, because the action, the elevation, all the elevation throughout the movie led to that point. The car chase scene, him getting arrested, and then the bomb going with all the explosions going off, and Harvey Dent and Rachel dying, Harvey Dent getting damaged. I think the movie should have just ended there, because the action was driving the story to that point. The third scene for me, the Dark Knight, didn't work for me. I didn't like the action, it was too dark, and I watched it in the cinema. I felt like it was too dark and too chaotic. It didn't feel well paced. I didn't get the action that I was looking for between Batman and the Joker. I felt that the action was lackluster, but that was not the point, because again, it was a very psychological take. It was more of a test for Batman. Joker was random as hell and unpredictable, which was good, but it wasn't good enough for me to enjoy it as an action set piece, third act action set piece. For me, the best action scenes from that movie, it's that chase scene and the explosion in the hospital, and what else was there? Yeah, that was it. Between the chase with the Batmobile and the truck flipping over, then the explosion at the hospital, there are no any other like major action set pieces that I can remember from that film. Now, when you look at Batman: The Mask of Phantasm, from the word go, it's just epic. It's just how he's introduced, how he jumps through the window, how he beats up a few. He's introduced in the best way possible, taking a few criminals out. Then the Mask of Phantasm is introduced. The action is paced very well for an animated film, actually. And that Batman and Joker fight scene at the World of the Future, that for me was perfect. It was so rewarding. It was so cathartic. It was that particular scene was so fulfilling, because again, they had the creative liberty to do what they wanted to do with the film. The explosions felt, the one thing I liked about Batman: The Mask of Phantasm was how they played with scale and the action set pieces. When Batman and Joker are playing in that miniature city and they look like kaijus, and then I've never small planes have never terrorized me that I've never been afraid of small toy planes. Like they actually made them menacing. They made them dangerous. Toy planes. Can you imagine that? Again, in terms of scale, when the explosions go off, the idea of a giant wheel. I mean, who thought about that? Who thought that when the explosion go off, we'll have a giant wheel rolling out of the flames? I loved that. I remember seeing that and my jaw dropping, because up to that point, I had not seen like a big scale action set piece. Think about it. Up to 93, had you ever seen any other movie that had a huge action set piece? So this is one of the few films that had that big explosions. They played around with scale so much that Batman and the rest of the guys and Joker, they looked minute, and the explosions felt impactful. They felt powerful. I'm not saying that Dark Knight did not have a good sound effect system. They had one of the best. The explosions felt epic. The truck flipping felt epic. The Bat bike felt epic in Dark Knight. But Mask of Phantasm, everything, the sound actually added value to every single thing. Every hit felt like a hit. When Joker was flying through the window, you'd feel the impact. When he picked something and hit someone, you'd feel the impact. When the explosions go off, when Batman is being chased, again, the reason why I'm saying Mask of Phantasm had a better action set piece, apart from the sound, apart from all those sound. You remember when he was being chased by the cops, after people thought that he was the one who was actually killing people instead of the Phantasm. He is actually as Batman, he's actually extremely vulnerable, because you see that chase scene is so well done. We see him get overwhelmed. At a point you're like, oh my gosh, where is this going? I don't know where the hell this thing is going to go, because now you're afraid for the character. You actually worry about Batman. So because of all that, I think, okay, here's the thing. The Dark Knight, I want to give The Mask of Phantasm a higher score. But again, that chase scene in The Dark Knight, it's simply iconic, because you have no sound. It's just the effects. The truck just running over cars, the explosion going off, and the van just running into a river. The flip, the Batmobile with the tires just, and there's no soundtrack. Okay, I'll give them a 4. I'll give Dark Knight 4. I'll give Phantasm 4. I think that's fair enough, because as much as The Mask of Phantasm had some like crazy over-the-top fight scenes and big explosion, I think Dark Knight has some of the most realistic and impactful fight scenes, despite the fact that there were not like so many of them. they have some of the most impactful action set pieces. Like the explosion, when it goes off, you actually feel it. Actually, in the same way, you actually feel like it's a big explosion. That's why I'm giving them a 4, both of them. So the last one, let's talk about Batman as a character. Batman as a character in this film is, man, I did not like Christian Bale's suit. For me, it did not work. I did not like how Batman was. He looked awkward, according to me. He looked awkward in the suit. He looked awkward in some situation whereby he's trying to apart from the interrogation scene with the Joker, I think that's the only scene that was framed very well. All the other scenes, Christian Bale as Batman works, but the costume just does something to him that I don't like. I don't know, maybe it's the coil, I don't know. I just didn't feel, it doesn't feel menacing. He feels like a guy in it feels like cosplay. Let me just put it that way. It feels like cosplay. And I know it's animation versus live action, but Batman in the mask of Phantasm on top of a building, he feels menacing. When you dream about Batman, that would look like the ideal Batman, because he looks menacing, he looks dangerous, he looks like what a Batman should look like. You understand? While Christian Bale, what I said about The Dark Knight is the fact that The Dark Knight feels like an action thriller, and Batman just happens to be one. A guy wearing a cosplay, wearing a Batman suit just happens to be there. While the Mask of Phantasm feels like Batman doing Batman things. You don't have to be told that this is Batman. When you look at Bruce Wayne and when he puts on the mask, you can actually tell the difference. You can tell that this is Batman from the eyes. I know it's animated, from the way the eyes are designed, from the way the way he utilizes the cape, especially when they're having the fight, the way he moves, him on top of the building, the way I know it doesn't make sense because it's a comic book movie, but for me, I think Kevin Conroy, even I know we all know about the voice, you know. Do we need to go through the voice? I mean, Christian Bale tried, he did his best, but Kevin Conroy is, you know, let's just be honest, better voice actor and better portrayal of, you can feel his power when he speaks. It doesn't feel like he's forcing it. It feels natural, and it feels menacing when he's talking to you. It feels deep and menacing, and I think I'll give this to Kevin Conroy, the late Kevin Conroy. So we'll give The Dark Knight, it's a good Batman, but not sufficient. We'll give it a 4, and then Mask of Phantasm, we'll give it a 4.5. I think that's fair enough. So here's the score. We've done it. We feel those are the things that I picked so that we can look at it, and we always need a score because we're in a world where we condition that everything needs a score so that we can know who's the winner and who's the loser. So for The Dark Knight, it's a 35.5, and for Batman Mask of Phantasm, it's a 36. So The Dark Knight loses by 0.5. So it's 36, 35. The Dark Knight loses. Yeah, it's the best, one of the best in terms of live action, but in terms of a Batman movie, I think Batman Mask of Phantasm is way up there. It's a much more superior film. It's not a much more superior, it's slightly superior. And here's the other thing I want to say before you come shouting into my comments saying, oh, you're wrong about before we start, you know, going out, before we explode and start going out on each other. When you think about but if you remember the first day you saw The Mask of Phantasm, you did not have any clue what the hell was going on. Yeah, some of you might have, but the way it was paced, the way it was introduced, the way The Mask of Phantasm was introduced, you were going through the film going like, could it be that? Could it be that? Could that be him? Could that be him? And then when Joker was being introduced, you were like, before his name was mentioned, you always look at him like the way Batman was looking at him. And you'd be like, oh, is it possible that this could be? And then boom, it is. And then you're there cheering. And then the end, the final scene, and when how everything just comes together in The Mask of Phantasm, it's just, the movie had a sense of mystery. Something that you don't see in a lot of Batman movies. It had a sense of, there was a sense of detectiveness. Even from the Joker, strangely enough, someone was always looking for someone was always investigating something and finding out something new about someone. There was a lot of detective work. There was a lot of mobsters and gangsters feeling like mobsters and gangsters. It's so I kind of like Mask of Phantasm just for that, and it was actually the first Batman movie that I watched for the first time and felt uncomfortable. That final scene, I was on the edge of the seat with the engine, edge of the seat. What's going to happen? She's going to die. Batman comes in with the motorbike and you're like, yes. Some of the action set pieces, like there's one on the streets and he's fighting with the guy on a motor bicycle and he jumps in slow-mo and punches the guy in the face and in slow motion, and it's animated. Very Batmanish, very comic book. So yeah, with The Dark Knight, it felt like a movie. It felt familiar. It felt like a movie. So watching it felt like I'm watching a movie, and Batman just happens to be in there. A very good action thriller, actually, but it lacked that sense of mystery. It lacked that sense of detect. Yes, there was a lot of investigations. There was a lot of talking between the cops and the good guys and trying to figure out the mob, and the mob trying to figure out Batman and trying to get to Batman. But it didn't feel as mysterious. I didn't feel as lost as I felt when I was watching Mask of Phantasm. I actually watched the movies back to back. I started with The Dark Knight, then I watched the Mask of Phantasm, and I realized that apart from the scores, apart from the 35, apart from the 0.5 score, the Mask of Phantasm has a better story. I just think it had a way better story, it had a way better pacing, and it had a better ending. The Dark Knight is a very good film, a very action thriller movie, very very good with a very good villain, but the ending for me wasn't perfect. It wasn't. It's if you love psychological set pieces, if you love puzzles, if you're into, I want a scene that makes me think, that works for you. But as an ordinary person who's looking for entertainment value, that doesn't work for me. So in terms of entertainment value, the Mask of Phantasm works very well. It's very entertaining. You can go back, watch it anytime, and you still have a good time. The Dark Knight, yeah, it's there. It's entertaining, but it gets old very quickly. Let me put it that way. So thank you for watching. You can put down, if for example you have your own system of evaluating the two films, you can just put them down and just talk about what you think about both of your films. Because if you are watching this, I believe that you are a Batman fan, and I believe that you've seen both films and you have your own opinion. So put it down on the comment section and let's talk about it. So thank you for watching, and see you on the next one. I want to do The Batman versus The Dark Knight.